I still remember the morning it happened. The house was quiet, too quiet. The sunlight had just begun to slip through the curtains, falling softly across the living room floor. I stood there with a warm cup of tea in my hands, thinking it would be a peaceful day. I thought the morning would start with a smile, maybe a simple good morning from my daughter-in-law as she prepared breakfast in the kitchen. But instead, it started with words I will never forget. She didn't shout. She didn't argue. She simply looked at me with tired eyes and said, almost gently, "I think it's time you left this house." For a moment, time stopped. I felt something inside me grow still. Not broken, just still. Her words floated in the air like dust that refuses to settle. I looked at her face, searching for anger, frustration, or even regret. But all I saw was distance, the kind that appears not in a single day, but over time, quietly, without making any sound. I remember I took a slow breath. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I didn't defend myself. I simply smiled, a small, trembling smile, the kind a mother gives when she doesn't want anyone to see her heart. Because the truth is, I had already felt this moment coming long before it arrived. I had felt it in the way she avoided my eyes at the dinner table, in the way her voice softened into polite distance, in the way my son hesitated before speaking to me, as if every word needed permission. Sometimes, the heart knows its own departure before the mouth ever speaks it. But still hearing those words, "It's time you left," they settled inside me like a stone slowly sinking in water. I stood there with my cup of tea cooling in my hands, thinking about all the years I had given, all the mornings I had woken before everyone else, all the meals I had cooked, all the love I had tried to give quietly, consistently, without asking for anything in return. And yet, here I was being asked to leave the very home I once helped build. People say pain comes with noise, shouting, doors closing, harsh words. But that day, my pain came wrapped in silence. And silence sometimes hurts the most. That moment became the beginning of a story I never expected to tell. A story of heartbreak, yes, but also of understanding, growth, and a new kind of strength I didn't know I carried. This is the story of the day my daughter-in-law spoke words I will never forget, and how those words changed the path of my life forever. Before I take you to the moment everything changed, I want to take you back to where it all began. Because stories like mine, they don't break in a single day. They build slowly, quietly, through years of love, sacrifice, mistakes, misunderstandings, and unspoken expectations. I was not a perfect mother, but I tried. I tried with everything I had. My son, Aram, was my whole world. I raised him alone after my husband passed away when Aram was only 10. I still remember the way my boy looked at me the day we came home from the hospital, confused, frightened, clinging to my hand as if I was the only anchor he had left. And maybe I was. Those years were hard, but they were full of love. I worked 2 jobs. I slept late and woke early. I learned how to fix things around the house, so he wouldn't grow up feeling the absence of a father every time something broke. I wasn't strong because I was brave. I was strong because I had no choice. And Aram, he grew into such a gentle, respectful young man. He checked on me every night. He never left the house without telling me when he'd return. He studied with determination, always saying, "Mama, I'll take care of you someday." And I believed him. Maybe I believed him a little too much. When he got his first real job, I cried with pride. When he told me he fell in love with a girl from work, I prayed for his happiness. And when he said he wanted to marry her, I welcomed her, truly, with my whole heart. Her name was Sanaa. She was quiet, polite, and always smiling in the early days. She brought sweets when she visited. She sat with me and asked about Aram's childhood. She even helped me set the dinner table the first time her family came to meet us. In those days, I thought she would be like a daughter to me, someone who would fill the silence that grew in a house where only two people lived. When they married, I moved into their new home with them, not because I demanded it, but because Aram insisted. "Mama, your place is with me," he said. "You've spent your whole life taking care of me. Now let me take care of you." Maybe that was the first moment things began to shift, a tiny shift, too small to notice then. Because while a son sees his mother's presence as love, a wife may see it as a shadow she never asked for. In the beginning, everything was peaceful. Sanaa smiled often. She served me tea. She asked if I needed anything. I tried my best not to interfere in anything, their choices, their routines, their small disagreements. I stayed in my room or in the kitchen, helping only when asked. But slowly, almost invisibly, the warmth began to fade. Not all at once. Not with anger. Just with distance. Like a curtain slowly sliding between two people. The small distance between us grew so slowly that, at first, I didn't even realize it was distance. I thought it was simply the natural adjustment of a young couple trying to find their rhythm. I told myself, every home has changes. Every home has quiet days. But soon, the quietness began to feel different. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of something unsaid. The first change I noticed was in the mornings. Sanaa used to greet me with a soft, "Good morning, Mama," whenever she passed the living room. Her voice was gentle, respectful, almost sweet. But over time, the greeting became shorter, then quieter, and finally disappeared altogether. She would walk past me, eyes on her phone, hair tied quickly, her steps rushing as if she had somewhere more important to be than in the same room as me. I told myself it was normal. I told myself she was busy. I told myself not to take things personally. But sometimes, the heart feels what the mind tries to ignore. I've always believed that families show their true bond at the dinner table. But slowly, even dinner changed. In the beginning, we all sat together. Aram would ask me about my day. Sanaa would share small stories from work. We would laugh at little things, the kind of laughter that makes a home feel alive. But one day, Sanaa began eating earlier, saying she was hungry. Another day, she said she had a headache and preferred to eat in the room. Then she said she had work to finish. Then she simply stopped coming to the table. Soon it was just me and my son sitting together, and even he looked distracted, glancing at his phone every few minutes, probably checking if she needed anything. The space where she used to sit felt painfully empty. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be a weight on their young marriage. So I smiled and pretended not to notice. But deep down, I felt something slipping. One evening, while walking past their room, I heard Sanaa speaking on the phone. Her door wasn't fully closed, so her words spilled softly into the hallway. She said, "I feel like I have no space." A pause. "I can't relax in my own home." Another pause. "It's because his mother is always here." The sentence didn't even finish before I stepped back quietly, as if my feet were suddenly too heavy to move. I didn't mean to hear it. I wished I hadn't heard it. But once words enter the heart, they don't leave easily.
She didn't look at me.
She just said, "It's okay. I'll do it." Her voice wasn't rude. It was just cold. When she made the tea, she brought one cup for herself and one for my son. She didn't make one for me. A small thing.
Such a small thing.
But sometimes, it's the smallest things that break the heart the quietest. I stood there for a moment, unsure what to say. Then I gently took a kettle and made my own tea. My hands trembled slightly, not from anger, but from the sudden understanding that I no longer belonged in the spaces I used to fill so naturally. I gathered my courage one evening. It wasn't easy. My chest felt tight, and my voice felt small before I even began speaking. I found her in the living room and said gently, "Sanaa, if I've done anything that made you uncomfortable, please tell me. I don't ever want to be a problem for you." She looked surprised, almost caught off guard. She hesitated, then looked away and said, "No, Ani, it's nothing."
Auntie.
Not mama. Not Amma. Auntie. Another small word. Another quiet cut. She didn't say anything else.
She didn't look at me again.
She simply picked up her phone and walked to the bedroom, leaving me standing alone with words still trembling on my lips. I realized then that she didn't want to fix the distance, because for her, the distance was comfort. During the festival season, I woke early and prepared sweet dishes like I do every year. It's a tradition, one that gives me joy, one that reminds me of my late husband, one that carries memories of Aram's childhood. But that year, something was different. Sanaa didn't come out of the room for hours. When she finally did, she didn't look at the sweets. She didn't smile. She didn't say anything. Aram tried to lighten the moment. He said, "Sanaa, Mama makes the best kheer. Just taste it." She gave a polite smile and said, "I'm not hungry." It wasn't about hunger. It was about walls that kept growing higher. I told myself not to mind, but inside, I felt an ache that tasted like loneliness. A festival without warmth is not a festival at all. The house began to feel unfamiliar. The cushions were placed differently. The curtains she chose were darker than the ones I had. She rearranged the kitchen shelves. She bought decor that didn't feel like home to me. I wasn't against any of it. Every new wife deserves to build her home. But there was one thing missing in every change. She never asked me. Not once. It wasn't the changes that hurt. It was the message behind them. This is my home now. You are only a guest here. And so, I started behaving like one. Quiet. Careful. Walking softly. Asking before touching anything. Always making sure I didn't inconvenience her. And the quieter I became, the louder my sadness grew inside me. One night, I heard Sanaa telling my son that she needed privacy. "I can't relax," she said. "I feel like we have no space to live like a married couple." My son tried to calm her. "I know, but Mama doesn't have anyone else." She sighed and replied, "I know that, but we also have a right to our own life." There was a long silence. I stood behind the hallway wall, tears gathering in my eyes but refusing to fall. My son didn't say, "She stays." He didn't say, "We will adjust." He didn't say, "Mama's happiness matters too." He only said, softly, helplessly, "I don't know what to do." And those words told me everything.
He was torn.
He was confused.
He was struggling.
And I didn't want to be the reason for his struggle. One evening, I had a mild fever. Nothing serious, just fatigue. Sanaa saw me sitting on the sofa, holding my head. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't bring water. She didn't show concern. Instead, she looked annoyed, as if my illness was a disturbance in her routine. Later that night, my son brought me medicine. But even he looked worried. Not for my health, but for the tension it might create. And that hurt more than the fever. One evening, Aram came to my room. He looked uncomfortable, as if he was rehearsing his words in his head before speaking. "Mama," he said softly, "Sanaa feels like the house is too full. She says we don't get enough time together." I nodded. I didn't interrupt. I didn't feel angry. He continued, "She wants more privacy. She wants to feel like this is our home. Our home.
Not mine.
Not ours.
Just theirs."
I looked at my son's face, the same face I had raised with love, sacrifice, and sleepless nights, and I realized something painful. He loved me, but he was choosing her comfort over mine. And maybe that was natural.
He was a husband now.
But it hurt. Quietly. Deeply. It was a Saturday morning. I woke early, as usual, and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. I had only begun slicing bread when Sana walked in. She didn't greet me. She didn't smile. She looked straight at the counter and said, "Please don't cook any more unless I ask. I have my own way of doing things." Simple words. Not rude. Not harsh. But they carried a weight that pressed on my chest. It felt like she was saying, "Do not be the mother of this home. Do not be part of our life. Do not exist in the spaces that belong to us." I took a deep breath and stepped back. "Of course," I said gently. "I will stay out of your way." And she simply nodded and continued with her morning. I walked slowly to my room, feeling more like a stranger than ever before. That night, as I lay on my bed, I realized that living in that house had become painful. Not because they mistreated me with cruelty, but because they didn't need me.
They didn't want me.
My presence felt heavy to them, and I didn't want to live where I was a burden. I decided that if the situation ever reached a point where they openly told me to leave, I wouldn't fight. I wouldn't argue. I would simply accept it with grace. Because love sometimes means letting go. I didn't know then that the moment was closer than I imagined. The words that would push me away were waiting just around the corner. And they were going to come from the person I least expected. The day everything changed started just like any other day. That is the strange thing about life. Sometimes the moments that break you do not come with storms or warnings. They arrive gently,
Softly.
like a regular morning holding an unexpected truth. I woke up early, as I always did. But something felt different the moment I opened my eyes. The house was unusually quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but the kind of quiet that comes before a conversation no one wants to have. Even the air felt heavier. I wrapped my shawl around my shoulders and walked toward the kitchen, hoping to distract myself by making tea. My steps were slow, almost hesitant. Deep inside, I felt something was waiting for me. Something I had been sensing for months, but was about to finally hear out loud. Sana was in the kitchen. She wasn't cooking. She wasn't smiling. She was just standing there, holding her coffee cup with both hands, staring at the window as if her thoughts were far away from this house. When she heard my footsteps, she turned around. Her eyes didn't carry anger. They carried exhaustion. A kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work or chores, but from holding in feelings for too long. I felt a soft ache run through my chest. I greeted her gently. "Good morning."
She didn't respond.
That was when I knew something was coming. Before I could say anything else, I heard another set of footsteps. Arm walked into the kitchen, but he didn't look at me the way he used to. His eyes were anxious. His shoulders were tense. He looked like a man standing between two people he loved, afraid to break either one. "Good morning, Mama," he said quietly. Quietly. Not warmly. Not naturally. That alone told me everything. He wasn't here to wish me a good day. He was here because something needed to be said. My son took a small breath. Then another. Finally, he said, "Mama, can we talk?" I nodded. But inside, my heart felt like it had stopped moving. Sana stepped aside, as if giving him space, but she didn't leave the room. That hurt more than I expected. If this was something between a mother and her son, shouldn't she step away? Shouldn't she allow him to speak freely? But she stayed, because she already knew what he was going to say. Maybe she was the one who asked him to say it. He looked at me with hesitant eyes. "Mama, you know we love you. You know you mean a lot to me." His voice trembled. I said softly, "It's okay, Beta. Say what you need to." He swallowed. His hands shook a little. Then the words came, slowly, as if each one hurt him too.
Nana.
Sanaa feels uncomfortable living like this. We don't have privacy. We don't have our own space. She feels pressured all the time.
He paused.
I nodded, staying calm. I didn't interrupt. I wanted to make it easier for him because he looked like he might break before he finished speaking. Then he said the words that ended something inside me. Mama, maybe it would be better if you stayed somewhere else for a while. Somewhere else. Not here. Not with him. Not in the home where I thought I belonged. His voice was quiet. He wasn't rude. He wasn't angry. But the gentleness made it hurt even more. Before I could respond, Sanaa spoke too. It was the first time she had spoken directly to me in days. She said, Ani, we just need space. We feel like we cannot breathe freely. We cannot live like a young couple when someone is always around. Always around. I felt the words land on my heart like slow, soft blows. She continued, We don't mean to hurt you, but we also have the right to our own life. You've lived yours. Now please let us live ours. You've lived yours. I don't think she meant cruelty. She spoke quietly, almost politely. But some sentences hurt no matter how softly they're said. Aram lowered his head. He didn't defend me. He didn't stop her. He just looked guilty, helpless, and silent. And silence in moments like this is louder than any scream. I took a breath. A long, steady breath. My heart felt like it was cracking open, but I didn't cry.
I didn't ask why.
I didn't remind them of my sacrifices, or my love, or my years of raising my son alone. I simply nodded. Then I smiled. A small, soft smile. The kind of smile a mother gives when she is breaking inside but refuses to let her child see. I said, I understand. My voice did not shake. My hands did not tremble. But inside, I felt something collapse. Something quiet. Something deep. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was belonging. Maybe it was the belief that this house was still my home. Whatever it was, it didn't survive that moment. I walked to the counter to pick up the cup of tea I had made earlier. My hands were steady, but the cup felt heavier than usual. As I held it, the warmth burned against my fingers. And I realized it wasn't the cup burning me. It was the moment, the realization, the truth. I was no longer needed here, no longer wanted, no longer part of their life. But instead of tears, a strange calm spread through me, because somewhere deep inside, I already knew this moment was coming. This was simply the day it arrived. I went to my room, not rushing, not crying, just quietly walking, as if I were floating outside my own body. When I closed the door behind me, the silence felt heavy. I looked around at the few belongings I kept there, small things, nothing valuable. My shawls, my few clothes, a framed photo of my husband, a little box of letters from my son's childhood. As I began packing, my hands moved slowly. Every fold, every touch felt like a farewell. I didn't pack everything. I didn't need much. I only packed enough to leave with dignity. And that hurt the most. Not the leaving, not the packing, but the fact that I knew exactly what I needed for a life without them. While I packed, I heard faint voices outside the room.
Sana?
Thank you for saying it. It had to be said. Aram. She must be hurt.
Sana?
She will adjust. She's strong.
Strong.
People call a mother strong when they want her to tolerate pain quietly. I sat on the edge of the bed and breathed slowly. A strong woman is not one who feels no pain. A strong woman is one who chooses silence over self-defense, just to keep the people she loves at peace. When I stepped out of the room, my bag in my hand, they both looked at me. Aram rushed to me. Mama, You don't have to leave right now. We can talk later. I placed my hand gently on his arm.
No, beta.
You said what you needed to say, and I heard you. Sana looked relieved. Not happy. Just relieved. That single expression told me more than any words. I said softly, "This is your home. You should feel free here. I don't want to cause tension between you." My son's eyes grew wet.
Nana.
I love you. I smiled. I know, but I also knew something else. Love is not always enough to keep people together. Sometimes, love has to step back, even when the heart wants to stay. I walked toward the front door. Each step felt like a goodbye to a life I had built with love, sacrifice, and hope. When I reached the door, I turned around one last time. My son stood there, torn between two worlds. My daughter-in-law stood behind him, holding his hand. I whispered, "Take care of each other." Then I opened the door. The air outside felt cold.
Fresh.
Different. I stepped out quietly, and as the door closed behind me, it didn't slam. It didn't echo. It closed softly, soft enough for them not to feel it. But inside my heart, it closed forever. As I walked down the stairs, everything felt blurry around me. The walls I had seen every day. The railings I held onto when I climbed up tired. The floor where my son had once played as a child. But now, none of it belonged to me. I kept walking. My bag felt light, but my heart felt heavy, and strangely free at the same time. Free from waiting for acceptance. Free from silently absorbing pain. Free from being unwanted in a place I once called home. As the days passed, something unexpected began to change. It didn't happen loudly. It didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, gently, like the way morning light enters a dark room. One evening, after all the bitterness and harsh words, I sat alone and wondered how everything had reached this point. I remembered the old days, when our home was filled with laughter, when even small joys felt precious, when we stood by each other without any question. That memory softened something inside me. Maybe the others were feeling the same. The next day, something surprising happened. My daughter-in-law knocked on my door, not with anger, not with pride, but with trembling hands. She said quietly, "Can we talk? I don't want our home to feel like a battlefield anymore." Her voice wasn't strong. It was tired. It was hurting, just like mine. I looked at her carefully, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't see a rival. I didn't see someone trying to take my place. I saw a young woman, far from her own mother, far from her comfort, trying to build a life in a home she didn't fully understand yet. We talked, really talked the way people do when they finally drop their armor. She told me she felt judged. She told me she felt unwanted. She told me she tried to please everyone but ended up failing because she felt alone. And I told her the truth, that I never hated her, that I only feared losing my place in my son's life. That sometimes mothers hold too tightly because letting go feels like losing the biggest part of their heart. For the first time, we cried together. Not as Sas and Bahu, not as two women wrestling for space, but as two humans who were hurting from the same wound, the wound of misunderstanding. After that conversation, the entire home slowly began to breathe again. Meals were cooked together. Small jokes returned to the dining table. My son smiled more. Even the walls felt lighter. I started giving her space. She started giving me respect, and together, we created something important. Not perfection, just peace. One afternoon, she handed me a cup of tea she had made especially for me. She said, "I know I cannot replace a mother, but maybe, someday, I can become a daughter." That sentence broke me and healed me at the same time. I held her hand and replied softly, "You already are." And just like that, the storm that once felt endless finally passed, not because one of us won, but because both of us chose to understand rather than blame. Sometimes, resolution isn't about proving who is right. It's about choosing what matters more. Peace over ego, family over pride, love over stubbornness. And in that choice, we all finally found our way back to each other. Looking back now, I understand something I could not see before. Families don't break in a single day, and they don't heal in a single moment. It takes patience. It takes courage. It takes love that is stronger than ego. I learned that silence can destroy a home faster than harsh words. And a simple conversation, spoken with honesty, can rebuild what seemed lost forever. I also learned that every person in a family carries a hidden struggle. A mother fears being replaced. A daughter-in-law fears not being accepted. A son gets torn between two worlds he deeply loves. Everyone feels something. Everyone hurts in their own way. But healing begins the moment we stop seeing each other as enemies and start seeing each other as humans. If there is one thing I want anyone listening to this story to remember, it is this. Love is not about winning. Love is about understanding. When pride speaks, hearts break. But when kindness speaks, homes become warm again. No family is perfect. No relationship is easy. But when we choose forgiveness over anger and understanding over judgment, even the deepest wounds can become lessons, and even the coldest relationships can find light again. Today, our home is not flawless. We still disagree. We still stumble. But we do it with respect. We do it with love. And most importantly, we do it together. Because at the end of the day, family is not built by blood alone. Family is built by effort, by patience, and by choosing to stay, even when it's hard. And that, more than anything, is what healed us.